Hey humans! For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brittany, and today I'm going to talk about how I learned to play the guitar as an adult with no previous experience. This is not a tutorial at all. I am not here to teach you how to play the guitar, but I will talk about my journey of learning how to do so. A little background, I've wanted to play the guitar since I was a kid. I feel like it's just such a cool instrument, and also I've always been really into rock music, so the idea of being able to play music like the stuff that I was listening to just always sounded really cool, and I'm still very interested in doing that. I also took vocal lessons for a long time growing up. I was really appealed by the idea of being able to play an instrument and accompany myself, like sing while playing an instrument. It's like geek musical talent. I played the piano when I was young, but I never really got to the level of being able to play the piano while singing, except for maybe a few Christmas songs. So this feels like kind of a whole new skill to be gathering. Honestly, being able to play the piano doesn't really translate super well to the guitar, so it'll be cool to get into this new instrument, new journey. I also think this could be fun for you to watch if there is a you out there, and if not, just for me to have recorded for myself in the future, because it can sometimes be so easy to focus on the destination and where you're trying to get that you lose track of the journey and can get kind of demoralized as you're learning something. But most of your experience is going to be happening in the journey that you take toward a destination. When you're learning a new skill, it's easy to not see all of the progress that you're making pretty rapidly as you're going about things, because you're really focused on the end destination and not necessarily where you're starting and how far you're going. This video is just one example of what that journey can look like, from the point of conceiving of a goal to actually getting on the path and the ups and downs associated with actually learning and getting to achieve something. Working towards a goal often isn't linear. It can suck a lot of the time, and it's absolutely worth it if it's something that you're interested in pursuing, if you're really passionate about that end goal. Now, back to learning the guitar. Prior to my real start of learning how to play the guitar, I reached out to an instructor who just never got back to me. So this is an idea that I'd had, I think, originally during COVID, and I just shelved it because I was too lazy to follow up after my original failed start. I came back to the idea of really wanting to learn the guitar after just desperately needing a hobby. With that, decided it was time for a new approach. If I was having a hard time finding a physical, like human instructor, I was gonna do the next best thing. Which means I did what most people do and I Googled it. I think specifically I Googled how to play the guitar for beginners. And fortunately, a lot of people on YouTube happen to be teaching exactly that. I found this 8-video series by Marty Music that was specifically set up for people that had no prior experience with the guitar, and I clicked on the first video and got started. Everything hurts. It's also painful. Needless to say, this was immediately a struggle for me. I get why I kind of immediately abandoned the idea the first time, because man, this was as hard as expected. When getting started, it often did not sound pretty. My fingers hurt a lot. I don't know if you know this, but there's like a couple key features of learning to play the guitar that cause, I would say, a not insignificant amount of pain. Specifically, to get the sound to happen, you have to push the strings down with your fingertips, which is just painful before you've built calluses, so it's like tricky to do. And there are several chords, which I will complain about, where you have to kind of contort your fingers into particular positions to actually get the chord to sound right, and do a lot of contorting to make sure you don't make weird sounds. I don't think that's how fingers are supposed to move.
In the shape,
It's,
right?
the shape isn't in the shape when it's supposed to be in the shape.
C chord, and we want the ring finger on the third of the A string.
So it hurt. It was painful. It was a lot trickier than the piano in this way. Rant over. I did a lesson a day until I finished Marty's beginner series, which was a little over a week. I'll put a link in the description below if you're also interested in trying it out or are interested in learning the chords that I learned. Being fully honest, I probably spent more time figuring out where the heck my fingers from my left hand were supposed to go to make chords than I did actually strumming the guitar for the first couple weeks. I also made a lot of sassy comments at Marty's expense while attempting to do his lessons. This definitely wasn't a smooth upward progression. In fact, I can't say if it's true or not, but I feel like about 2 to 4 days into the process, I was actually worse than I was when I started because the fingertips had started to hurt so much that I was worse at holding down the chords and was more consistently making bad sounds. Man, it's like stressful when there's a video on. Whew, not that. Ultimately, in that first week, I probably spent 2 to 3 hours just practicing learning those chords and learning a bit about the strumming patterns so that I could get started in something else. I want to pause before moving on and say here that the way Marty taught this beginner series was great for keeping me motivated personally. Even though I was frequently making bad sounds with the guitar, having it structured so I was learning on a chord basis made it easy to stay motivated because it immediately sounded like I was making music and I could recognize the chords I was playing in songs that I knew and enjoyed listening to. So it felt like I was much closer to achieving my goal. If you're interested in learning to play the guitar, I would highly recommend you look into Marty's videos. Unpausing my nice things about Marty moment. So I had 8 chords down and I was ready to go. He had some lessons on strumming that I did as well, and then I decided it was time to go for something a bit more interesting. I wanted to learn how to play the guitar so I could play songs. It was time to learn how to play songs. And since Marty had been such a great teacher so far, I opted to learn one of the songs that he had listed as a beginner song on his channel. Specifically, in this case, it was Knockin' on Heaven's Door. It was only a few chords, all of which I knew, and a song I was familiar with because I'm pretty sure everyone's heard this song before. But even though I knew the song, it wasn't quite what I was looking for. I wasn't familiar enough to be able to hear if I was off, and I was still struggling to get from the D to the C chord because at this point, the C chord is still fully my mortal enemy. My fingers refuse to smoothly get into the C chord without trying to transition. So trying to also transition from one chord into that chord was just too much. What do his hands look like? What? Is that right? Am I doing that? Is that even the sound it's supposed to make? Am I making this up? Then my parents had what I deem is a hilarious recommendation that I should learn how to play Smelly Cat from Friends. Had really basic lyrics, basic strumming, seemed like the perfect thing to get me back onto my journey. After looking it up, I found that it was only 3 chords, all of which I had learned in Marty's beginner series, and none of them were the C chord. It didn't take long before I could play a mediocre version of the song, and I was even able to sing along more quickly than expected. Smelly cat, smelly cat, what are they feeding you? Smelly cat, smelly cat, it's not your fault. I was reinvigorated to step it up and try something a little bit harder. And that's when the song Unwell by Matchbox 20 somehow just appeared on my TikTok. I don't think this was a song that was actually popular on TikTok at the time. I think it was just like some random video that I happened to scroll past. But it reminded me that I did really like the song several years ago and was vaguely familiar enough with it that I thought that this could be a good first song for me. So I decided, after some pondering, that this would be my first real song. And now, this is where I depart from Marty, since I was looking for something specific. In departing from Marty, I also became immediately aware that there was much left to learn. Obviously, I knew that there were more than 8 chords to be learned, and that there were definitely going to be chords that were more challenging than the ones that I had learned so far. But I didn't really think that this song was going to be the one that stumped me. First, I had to figure out what a capo was and how to use it. Fortunately, I already had one, thanks to my dad, and it actually didn't prove to be as challenging as originally expected. Things that proved to be more challenging in this journey: learning to play the B bar chord and learning how to use a pick. At this point, you might be asking, a pick? Shouldn't you have already learned how to use a pick? That seems like part of the journey. That seems like part of what you do. And yes, Marty and the rest of the internet did inform me that I should be learning how to use a pick. It's apparently important. And also, every time I used it, it sounded horrendous and I didn't want to. But I was getting to the point where if I was going to continue using my thumb, I would get a fat blister on the thumb of my right hand. And given the severe suffering my left hand had undergone for this journey, it did not feel appropriate to also cause harm to my right hand. And so, to the dismay of my ears, it became time to actually learn how to use a pick. I learned later from Marty, yes, he's back, that actually I should be using a pick that is pretty thin to get started with and over time could graduate to a thicker pick, but they proved to be more challenging. And so I found a thin pick in my guitar bag, in my case, not a bag, and I tested it out. And it still sounded bad. It sounded really, really bad. This definitely took a while to get better at. Particularly strumming upwards was really challenging. I was hitting the bottom string way harder than I was hitting the rest of the strings, so that note would ring out really clear and it just did not produce a great sound. It also was more obvious with the pick when I wasn't holding the chords down all the way because you could hear the vibrations that are not like the pretty sounds. So basically, I was consistently hitting the notes in a way that was just not like pretty guitar music. I spent a lot of time just strumming the chords for Unwell that I knew with the pick and trying to get that to sound like actual music instead of like the guitar was screaming out for help. But to really make progress, I had to combine my efforts with this and also figure out how the freaking B bar chord works. I should take the time to acknowledge here that I said some pretty mean things about the C chord. And while I definitely still would have complained because I did not appreciate my time with the C chord, I would have reserved the term mortal enemy had I known that this B bar existed. The tricky thing here is that rather than a normal chord with the normal level of finger contortion, a bar chord requires a whole other level of finger pain. This I needed to figure out how to lay my index finger down flat on the fret and then use my other fingers to hold down particular notes, which basically is insanity. Then I'm gonna make the worst sound that has ever been known to man, probably. But it is also a skill I needed to learn for this freaking song, so I did it. My left hand will never be the same. At this point in the journey, it was a lot easier to stay motivated because I could hear that I was making sounds more closely resembling actual music. So I wasn't getting demoralized when I was running into a new challenge and things weren't super smooth. I also think it was a big help to have filmed some of the times when I was practicing. It was really awkward to do. I didn't love it, and I often just stared at the camera like my face looked so creepy. But it was really nice to be able to go back and see how much progress I had made. Like, it's so easy to forget what your baseline was, what you started at. And having had that recorded was so valuable, so I could be really excited about where I was now, even if I wasn't where I wanted to be. I continued to play for a minimum of 5 minutes a day and often 15 to 45 minutes because that's how you get better. You just practice. I would bounce around depending on what I felt like I needed to do to get better that day. Whether I was ready to take on picking practice, the B bar chord, or just working on like more smoothly transitioning between the chords, I just spent a little bit of time on each consistently until I was kind of bringing it all together. Once the song started to feel more manageable, I practiced singing along, and eventually I got to a pretty all right version of Matchbox 20's Unwell. I'm just a little unwell, I know right now you can't tell, but soon enough you're gonna think of me and how I used to be. I'm not crazy, I'm just little impaired, I know right now you don't care, but soon enough you're gonna think of me and how I used to be. And that's all, folks. I learned a whole new song on the guitar after an extended period of time practicing and making a lot of sarcastic comments. It can be easy to forget that all of that chaos is what exists between your start of your journey and reaching your destination, but that is such a huge part of it. It's easy to get demoralized when you're online all the time and just seeing people's finished versions posted for bragging rights, but know that anytime someone is like showing this beautiful end picture, they had a journey. They had the ups and downs and the chaos in between the start and this point. So if nothing else, I hope your takeaway from this video is that just go do the thing that you want to do but seems hard. It probably is. And it could take a while to get to that vision that you have in your head, but if you're really passionate about it, if it's something you really want to accomplish, it's absolutely worth it. And honestly, the little moments along the journey are sometimes like the coolest ones. Got it. Okay. Yep, I can do that. I can totally do that. I believe in me. To close out, if you enjoyed this, maybe pop it a like, subscribe, I'll be around, and also leave a comment if you have anything you want to try and that maybe you're thinking about getting started with now. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching. Now, go do something fun, dude. I'll catch you in the next one.
Finger third, middle second of the D, index one first of the B. Straight away, so all four fingers to do it.
Yeah.
Bad.
Telling me it's gonna hurt my fingers.